Hi, this is Brad with Baker County Trash Pickup. In addition to the specific videos about why we do or don't do certain things, a lot of you folks have asked for kind of the weekly update videos where I go over how much we spent, how many people we got to join, the breakdown on the hourly rate, that kind of thing. Probably I will not do those every single week, maybe once a month. So this is the update for the end of April. We've still got one more pickup, but not too much is going to happen between now and the end of the month. As a quick refresher, if you don't know who I am, if this is the first video that you've seen, my wife and I started a trash pickup business 1 year ago, April of 2024. We started picking up trash in that business June of 2024, whenever Waste Management pulled out of our rural Northeast Florida county and said they would not be offering trash pickup services anymore. Our goal in this business is to build something that can pay our personal bills and support itself as a business and cover all the business expenses, with us only working 1 to 2 days a week. Now, I know we have some viewers who, if we said that they were skeptical, that would be putting it mildly. But again, I'm not one to hide anything. I don't really get ashamed of the mistakes that I make. I think there's a lot more value in sharing them. You'll already see many videos documenting the mistakes I've made in this trash business. So completely understand the skepticism about, can a trash company actually not only survive but thrive and pay for itself on just 1 or 2 days of work a week? I'm as interested as you are. So if you think that's not possible, again, that's the whole point of these video series, is to see if it is, to show the mistakes along the way. So hey, maybe consider subscribing so you can stick around for the ride. As it stands, we have 182 clients and 211 cans out. At the very beginning of this business, we purchased 200 cans. That's what we hand out to customers when they sign up. You may have seen in a recent video that we purchased another 200, so now we've got, about 190 cans sitting on our property. The rough math on the income that amount of clients will bring in for a week, $1,819.25. Now, keep in mind, we didn't really make that much. These numbers are very simplified just to kind of give you an overview. We have about 20 folks who are on annual prepay, so they pay once at the beginning of the year and then they're done. We're probably going to be switching them over to monthly as their year winds up. Now, my expenses, these don't include things like, I just bought my wife a couple of embroidered t-shirts because she's just been using some orange workout shirt she has to wear in the truck. I bought some branded bottles of hot sauce to give away as gifts. And there's every door direct mail campaigns that I'll run where we'll mail out, a couple thousand mailers. Those kind of expenses are not captured in this little snapshot. The only variable expense it captures is our fuel, which is for this week $53.41. The other variable cost that we would have if we had employees is labor, but my wife and I are doing all this by ourselves, so we really don't have any other variable costs. The fixed costs that we have, one of them is truck insurance. That's about $10,000 a year. We have already paid for that for the year, so it's becoming due again in August. So we've got 4 months to go before we have to put down another $10,000. One of the short-term goals of the business is to save up enough money to pay that cash. That's a bill that we paid ourselves out of our own savings to get the business started last year, but this year the business will be able to pay for itself. We have an interest-only home equity line of credit payment to the bank for the truck. That was really the only way we could get that truck without paying cash. I've done videos on why I didn't want to get a used truck. That would have been much cheaper, but the truck we bought was around $135,000. We have a roughly $850 $780 a month payment that is interest only on that balance. It varies because of the numbers of days in a month and because we are starting to pay that balance down a very small amount every month. And we own the truck outright. We have the title for the truck. Basically, the bank gave us the money that we turn around and gave to the dealer. The dealer gave us the title, and now the bank has a second mortgage position on our home. I know there's a lot of folks who are going to think that's incredibly risky, and I'm not going to say it isn't risky. The amount on our primary mortgage is so low, and the amount that we have in savings and investments, well, it's certainly not worth what it was 6 months ago. Oh, goodness. But you know, worst case, if I become a paraplegic tomorrow and can't do anything, we should not have too much issue getting that debt cleared out and wiped off. So nobody's going to lose their house over this. Specifically, we aren't going to lose our house over this. Now, the trick with that truck payment is that it's interest only. So if I only pay that at the end of whatever I have left on that HELOC, 12 years maybe, the entire balance is going to become due. So it's very important for me to pay that off as quickly as possible, which is another financial goal of the business. Right now, what we're doing is allocating $1,000 a month to that payment. It's usually about $800, $850. Again, it depends on the numbers of days in a month, but whatever's left is going towards the truck. So at this point, it's only a couple $100. Such a small amount, it's not going to make any difference, but this business is basically paying for itself, and as we add new customers, we get a little bit more money every single month to do more with. So right now, we're putting $1,000 towards that. Hopefully in the next couple months, we can put $1,500 towards that. Once we get that first $10,000 saved up for the insurance, then we've got a full 12 months to save up the next $10,000, which means we can be more aggressive with some other stuff. That truck payment is also something that we used to have to pay ourselves out of our personal accounts, but now the business has grown to where we can make that truck payment, we can make that extra principal payment just on the virtues of what the business earns itself. The trailer payment, this, you don't see it in this video, but we got started with a 7x14 dump trailer that for many months now has been living in South Florida doing some disaster relief work, but I'm still paying on it even though it's not here, which is okay. If it's being used for a good cause, I have no problems, you know, making the payment on it. Whenever they're done with all the work, they're gonna send it back, and at that point I'm gonna try and sell it. We'll see if we can get it off the books, because if we don't, we'll still be paying on it till December of this year. It was an 18-month zero interest payment thing. It ends up being about $830 a month, I think, somewhere around there. So that's a rundown on all of those fixed expenses. Now, there are other fixed expenses, right? I've got general liability insurance. That's, I think, $600 a year. You know, but you break it down by week and it's like 10 or 12 bucks, right? And then, you know, if you've got an LLC, you've got to file every year. That's like $140. You break that down by week. What is that, like $2 and change? So there's other fixed expenses, but they're just not worth listing because, you know, they're such piddly little numbers. Again, all that to say, these are just rough numbers to give you an idea of 98% of what we've got to worry about as far as expenses. And if I did the math right, that means that this week's total expenses are $678.21. When we subtract the income we made for the week by the expenses we had for the week, we earned around $1,141.04. Now, that does not mean that we actually pocketed that money. All the money we are making is going right into the business account. None of it is going to pay our bills. So that's the part of the equation that we've got to work on in the coming months, is continuing to grow the business big enough that it can pay our own bills. Because right now we're just living off of savings. Recently we sold all the equipment from Copper Creek Cuts, so we're living off of that. We've still got a fairly comfortable margin, so you know, it's no rush that we have to get this thing done tomorrow. As a side note, I will say I really appreciate my wife's patience with all this. It is kind of a scary thing to start a new business, especially one that at the outset you know is going to take 2, 3, 4 years before you're making money on it. So for her to agree for the family to be able to do this, and not only that, but she also gets up with me every Monday when we run trash route. She gets up at 3 a.m. and drives a trash truck for almost 12 hours. So I don't know if anybody watching this is thinking of starting a business. If you are and you are married, I'd say getting your spouse's buy-in is the most important thing, because all I can tell you is, aside from how nice it is to have a support system that says they'll let you do whatever you're thinking and also helps you do the work. If I was doing this job by myself, I'd be pretty miserable, I think. So to have her support, this is just an aside from the main topic to say it makes a big difference. And that if you are thinking of starting a business, I would say you've got to do whatever it takes to get their support. So even if they're skeptical, that may mean laying out numbers and saying, well, I can completely understand where you're coming from, but consider these numbers and this math, and this is why I'm getting to this conclusion that we should do this. And I think that will also help sometimes with skepticism. So this week we left the house around 3:40 in the morning, and we were back around 2:53, which is 11.25 hours. One thing you will notice is this is higher from, I believe it's higher from the last update video that we made by a significant number. One of the reasons this number is so much higher this week is we have started making 2 trips to the landfill. We no longer can safely transport the amount of trash we haul in one trip to the landfill. When the tipper dumps the trash, it really stays, in most cases, in the middle of the hopper. Sometimes everything will tumble out just right and it'll evenly distribute around the hopper. Sometimes you've been seeing me take my little red hoe and spread the trash out evenly. If you don't do that, it will result in an uneven load where the middle gets more trash than the sides, and you'll actually lose some of your carrying capability. Now, as far as weight goes, I don't know enough to say this definitively, but I feel like with most garbage trucks, you have the ability to overload them on the weight side long before you fill them up from the space side. This trash truck, I have filled it with about 7,000 pounds of trash, which I did at one point before we started splitting things into two routes. And it was one of the reasons why I said, yeah, we're not doing this again. I don't have a scale on the truck, so I have no way to know how much I weigh until I get to the landfill. But that 7,000 pounds was me manually smoothing out with the hoe every single one of the trash cans that I tipped. If I don't do that, which now I really don't because we've split it into 2 routes, the truck will almost be full space-wise with only around 52, 53, 5,500 pounds of trash. So, you can fit another 1,500 pounds of trash in the same amount of space if you compact everything evenly and there's no, unwasted space. I've been on that tangent so long, I don't even know why I started telling you that. Hopefully it makes sense from wherever I started. But now we go 2 trips. So our first trip is we try and do it at a spot geographically that makes sense, but it's not a 50-50 split for weight because we're still around 5,000 pounds for the first load and then 2,000 for the last load. So ideally, all of our new customers from here on out would be on the second load to the landfill, but we can't control that. At some point, we'll have to just change where we go to the landfill and go a little bit earlier in the day. So because we are going twice now a day, we have added a good bit of non-productive time where we have to leave the route to go to the landfill. We have to be at the landfill for usually 25, 28 minutes. But if there's a line, you can be waiting your turn for 10 minutes. So there's no telling how long you're going to be at the landfill on any given run. But generally speaking, going to the landfill eats up about an hour. So now we've added 1 hour to our day because we're doing a second landfill trip. We also have about an hour of personal breaks in there. So we've got a couple places we'll stop and use the bathroom along the day. We've got 20 or 30 minutes where we will stop and eat lunch. But that's something we really have to do on a day this long. So the 11.25 hours, I wish it was 11 hours straight of picking trash, but unfortunately it's not. Because there are 2 of us, that means that if you're looking at the labor that it took to complete this work, there were 22.5 man hours. Sometimes I've gotten comments about people not understanding what that number represents. The man hours to complete the work is if we were paying employees, if we did have labor costs, if we ever finally do start paying ourselves, this is the number we've got to calculate everything off of. If we take the money that we had left over after we paid expenses and said all that was going to labor, well, our $1,141.04 of profit divided by 22.5 man hours, which would have paid myself for 11.25 and my wife for 11.25, we come out to $50.71 per man hour. Did we really earn $50 an hour? No, again, the business is not paying us any money. We are not pulling any money from the business to pay ourselves. This is just to give you an idea of, once the expenses are covered, what kind of an hourly rate could we be making if there were nothing else that we had to do with the money. But there is. We've got quite a bit of financial obligations when it comes to this trash business that are going to take a couple of years to completely take care of. And who knows how long. I say a couple of years if we can get a large influx of customers. Right now we've just been averaging a few every week, but if there's any new developments or anything where we can accelerate these numbers, that's when I'm going to get real excited about the potential this business has. On this week, we dumped 7,840 pounds of trash. If we had to pay dump fees on that, that would have been $117.60 in many, many places. I'd probably say 99.9% of everyone I've talked to, they have to pay their own dump fees. And even where we're at, our dump fee is $30 a ton, which is extremely low. If you go to some places, you may be paying over $100 a ton. So, you imagine if we had to pay $300 or $400 to dump all that trash, that's a lot of money from those profits that we had that are now gone, right? So very fortunate to be in that position as well. And again, one of the reasons why long term I really like the outlook on this trash business. And I tell you what, as this Florida weather is heating up, I am not sad at all that I've stopped mowing. All right, well, I hope that answered any of your questions. If you've got more, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. Honestly, shooting me an email is the best way to get a hold of me. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.